is the Right Guys podcast. Oh my gosh, it's all happening so fast. Liberal judge fails to stop the deportations. Trump's winning! And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back to another edition of the Right Guys podcast. Happy Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, is it St. Patty's Day today? Oh
St.
my
Patrick's
goodness.
Day. You saw me cracking a Guinness. What did you think? You think that's just my 3 o'clock ritual?
All right, so let's do this here.
Josh,
your last name is
Guinness.
McGuire. Okay. Start there. We'll start there, right?
Possible. It's possible. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day. Having a Guinness. The green cup I see because it's magically invisible.
Yep, because I always like using the green cups because then you can't. Well, this one you can because it's a little bit lighter green. But lots happened over the weekend.
Oh my gosh!
Donald Trump
late
last week, signed an executive order, basically enacting the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. I want to say it is. Yeah, it's a big deal. Yes. Aliens Enemies Act of 1798, I believe 1798. I put that in my book, The Conservative's Guide to Winning Every Immigration Argument. It's one of our oldest laws. So if you remember, growing up, you learn U.S. history, and they would teach a bit on the Alien and Sedition Acts.
Yeah, and
that was kind of one of the earliest kind of constitutional-ish challenges and rejections of U.S. law. The Sedition Acts basically criminalize conduct that today is pretty obviously protected by the First Amendment, speaking ill of the government, right? Saying bad things about the government. So those laws all got revoked. They weren't renewed. They're gone. But the alien portions of those, the Alien Enemies Act, is still on the books. And what that does is it gives the president tremendous powers to deport and remove from the country alien enemies. And so the question is, what defines an alien enemy? Now, in the traditional sense, it would be you're at war with a country and their nationals are in your country, right? It would be the same kind of presidential authority that would be used to, I don't know, put Japanese Americans in internment camps. That's a little different because those were Japanese Americans. But if you all of a sudden go to war with Japan, the federal government's authority to deport Japanese nationals stems from this kind of power. It's a common sense power. You don't want to be at war with someone and all of a sudden all of their nationals are just allowed to sneak around and do whatever they want. So what the Trump administration did is they declared Tren de Aragua, which you in Colorado, you know plenty about Tren de Aragua. This is the Venezuelan prison gang. So a lot of times there's a gang outside of prison that has an inside of the prison component. Tren de Aragua originated in prison. So these are all hardened prisoners. They're taking over the apartment complexes in Colorado, taking over lots of things, right? Basically demanding shakedown payments at gunpoint for residents. All on camera, caught by Ring doorbells, not debatable. Trump declared them terrorists. Tren de Aragua is a foreign terrorist organization, which gives him tremendous powers, whether you like it or not, to deal with them under a whole slew of laws, not to mention the Patriot Act. So you have in custody 250 people who not only entered the country illegally, but are connected, in many cases unapologetically so. They have the tattoos right on their body, connected to a designated terrorist organization. There's a liberal judge that says they should be allowed to stay.
Just want to, it's like that meme where you see Batman slap Robin. And, the word that comes up should be like, no, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that. And what always gets me on this is it was a prison gang. It's not like these guys were on the streets trying to get by. These were hardened criminals in a gang that got to the United States. So they had to be let out, right? Let's not forget that they let them out so they could come here. And some of these guys come from island nations. So were they taking the boat? Were they getting a Biden flight? Let's not forget all that stuff, right? There's a reason why they were here. It was called the Democrats. And we got a big dose of it here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And a prison gang? Really?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a reason that Venezuela announced that violent deaths in its country from 2022 to 2023 dropped by 25%. That was not all of a sudden everyone decided to follow the law, or their police really got good at solving murders before they happened rather than solving them after. No, that was because their murderers came here.
I know. Unbelievable. And we talked about this. Other people talked about it. There were people that were being canceled on Facebook back in the day for even suggesting that there might be these criminals that are coming over here. And we wonder why it got so bad as it did, is because when you had unchecked immigration, or at least allowing people to cross the border illegally, that's what you get. You get an invasion, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it makes a lot of sense. And that's what it felt like from the start. But we were demonized for it. Lots of people were demonized. It's pretty wild to think now that it's changing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is crazy. So Trump signed this order last week, and within hours, a liberal judge, intervened. And I'm just going to say it just so happens that the liberal judge who intervened, also James Boasberg, also happens to be one of the judges that was locking up January Sixers on the bogus charge that the Supreme Court overturned. Said you're
Wow.
not allowed to do that.
Shocking. Shocking.
Shocking. It
See,
it
my
really
friend,
should surprise. It should surprise no one. But this is the same guy. So this is the order that he signed on Friday. Friday, yeah, Friday, late in the day on Friday. It's not zooming in as it's nothing's changing. Oh wait, hold on. I'm sharing the wrong screen. So, hold on 1 second.
you've got
One
so many
second.
screens.
Here we go. I know I have so many screens open. Okay. So basically, the ACLU sued on behalf of these terrorists. And just so we're clear, they sued
The
on behalf of,
ACLU?
I'm pretty sure they sued on behalf of an unnamed group of plaintiffs, right? Because they don't have these people's names. They just know that the Trump administration is going to be deporting someone, and they're intervening on their behalf. I believe they might have some other names, but basically they're trying to say this is a whole class of people, and that they want to intervene on behalf of the class. And they got this judge, James Boasberg, to give a TRO, temporary restraining order, saying that unless a court has ordered these people deported from the country for another purpose, the Trump administration is not allowed to deport them for 14 days.
Huh.
Now, the problem was that the planes were already in the air.
Oh.
And according to the White House, the planes were already in international waters. So the order saying that the government is enjoined from removing members from the country, the Trump administration is arguing that order didn't apply to these two planes because those people had already been removed from the country.
Yeah.
They literally were removed from the country. So they went to El Salvador, which is another wild part of this story. How El Salvador is just coming in and being our knight in shining armor and taking our gang member terrorists and just locking them up for us for a fee.
Saw the posts, and you want to talk about some of the hardest prisons that exist on Earth?
Yes.
Russian gulags and El Salvadorian prisons. Oh, they are no joke, gang. Like, that sends a message, though. You know what I mean? If you do the crime,
Yeah.
you will do time in El Salvador, right?
And not just that you'll do time in El Salvador. Like, people like to think, oh, El Salvadorian prisons must be like really like run down. It must be like drinking water out of puddles, right? Just peeing in a corner. No, they've actually built brand new prisons just to hold their gang members. I'm gonna see if I can download it. I have it right here. I'm gonna have to just re-download it.
What I've seen, it looks
They
state of the
built
art.
new prisons. Yeah, it's state of the art, but it's also very bare bones. But they look generally clean. Let me see if I can find the video.
Well, it
But
looks like
before
a
we
place
do,
where there's
the
lots
funny
of
thing,
resources
yeah,
for
here
the
is
good guys.
Nayib Bukele. He is the president of El Salvador. He tweeted out a response to the New York Post headline: "Federal judge orders deportation flights carrying alleged Venezuelan gangbangers to return to U.S. blocks Trump from invoking Alien Enemies Act." The president of El Salvador retweeted that and said, "Oopsie, too late." Laughing, crying emoji.
That's a troll. That's a master troll. That's like a presidential troll.
Yes,
Wow.
it really is. It really is. Why isn't it letting
Wow.
me download this? Keep trying. I'm gonna have to just re-download it. But anyway, so the reason that El Salvador took them is because we're paying for them, right?
Yeah.
So we're paying for them. We're paying pennies on the dollar what it would cost for us to incarcerate these people in the United States, because it's just generally cheaper to do in El Salvador. But they're happy because to them, it's still a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. It's still a lot of money to, they'll take the money. They'll happily take the money. Like giving them a couple $1 million and saving us $20 million. That's a good deal for them. The other bit is that we also sent with these Tren de Aragua terrorists, we also sent 20 some odd MS-13 gang members, including two who have been openly wanted by El Salvador. And El Salvador says they're at the upper levels of MS-13 and will enable them to crack down and shut down, hopefully, most of the gang in the country. So like we gave, like, I think we handed over the number 2 in the whole gang. So they're like, yes, we will take your terrorists. You will pay us money. And yes, we will also take the MS-13 gang members that we have been desperate to get our hands on. And that's essentially the deal that went down. And it's downloading now. It's downloading very slowly.
It sounds like a really
but there's
good
a whole
deal.
video.
Like a good deal. I'm
Yeah.
excited for more of this.
I mean, it would be a good deal for everyone all around, right? Like, we got these people out of the country. These are the people who were raping, murdering, slinging drugs, sticking up apartment complexes, shaking down people for money. These are, as Trump says, bad hombres. And for a judge to attempt to exert international powers to keep them in the country is wild. It really is. It really is wild. Why is it taking so long to download? You have a clip of Stephen Miller going off on this. Why don't we play that clip while we're waiting for this one to download?
Sure.
Perfect unison to secure the homeland.
Well, let me. I want to hear a little bit. It is a fascinating program. I can only think about some of the women and children who these people were holding in different places in different states around the country.
So that is the video. They're playing the video I was trying to download. So this is a win-win.
Who are breathing a little bit easier today, and I would love to hear more about those operations. But let me play this first from somebody who I know is not a favorite of President Trump. This is Andrew Weissman, who's a former top Mueller prosecutor. Of course, it's not a huge surprise that he didn't like this operation. He doesn't think it's legal under the act that you just mentioned, Stephen. Watch.
We're not at war with Venezuela. We're not at war with the gang that is the subject of the executive order. There is no invasion that is going on. And you also have to show that the people you're removing are actually part of that gang, even if there were an invasion or a war. And this statute may, in fact, be very unconstitutional.
So the judge has to be convinced that these individuals aren't real. I mean, it's a huge group, and nobody's going to miss any of these people, but they're quantifiable. So can you prove that these individuals were linked with Tren de Aragua, and that Tren de Aragua is part of a Maduro operation, Stephen?
So first of all, Andrew Weissman is an absolute moron. He is a moron, and he is a fool, and he's a degenerate. Andrew Weissman has devoted his career to putting innocent Americans in jail, taking away their civil liberties. He was involved in the Mueller coup against a democratically elected President Donald J. Trump. Weissman should never be on TV anywhere. He should hang his head in eternal shame for what he's done to this country. And now he's up there shilling for people who rape and murder Americans. That's who Andrew Weissman is. I met the mother of Jocelyn Nungary, Alexis Nungary, who President Trump honored at the State of the Union, named a national wildlife refuge after her daughter. Tren de Aragua terrorists took that 12-year-old angel and they tortured her to death. They sexually assaulted her. They stripped her and they dumped her body in a river. That's who President Trump has deported from this country. Behind every single one of those terrorists was another future rape victim, another future sex trafficking victim, another future murder victim. Wow. Most importantly, every one of those people was here illegally. They have no right no right to be in this country for 1 second longer. They are illegal aliens. They are foreign terrorists. They are alien enemies. And the law at the heart of this issue was signed in the founding generation of this country, the same generation that wrote our Constitution. People say, oh, it's an 18th century law. You know what else is an 18th century law? The Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights of the United States. The founding generation gave us this law, gave President Trump this law to repel this invasion from our country.
I mean, there's
and it
no
was
higher...
all detailed in the process.
That's just wild.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's spot on. So
yeah,
this is where I think it gets really crazy. As I said, Alien Enemies Act of 1798. It's been on the books since 1798. It's been used multiple times, never been ruled unconstitutional. So it is a little it's pretty crazy for a federal judge to step in and say, actually, I know better and you can't enact it, because this is quite literally a break glass in case of emergency valve kind of law. When there is violence happening in the United States, you get these people out really, really quickly. Yeah. And we live in an age when warfare is not always conducted between state actors, armies wearing their country's colors, right? Most of the wars we fight nowadays are against non-state actors, right?
Yeah.
Against terrorist organizations who aren't actually in charge of countries. So the idea that the minute that someone takes off their uniform, this law would no longer apply is crazy. And you hear Weissman saying, well, how do we even know? The president of the United States, the executive branch, is not going to reveal in open court intelligence connecting them to the Maduro regime. That's just not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen. This law exists so that they can be removed from the country without having to go through that process of having to impanel a jury to hear state secrets. Like, that's crazy. That's insane.
As I recall, didn't we have a problem with pirates in the early part of the American existence, especially off the Carolinas and stuff like that? There were these bad hombres from around the world who sailed in, for the most part, and they would raid coastlines, they'd raid other islands. There was a reason why we needed to be able to kick the bad people out, because when you're a country that's so large, those people are going to try to get in. You had to make sure that the president and the executive had the power to remove the people who were most likely to harm you, right? There had to be a way to get rid of the bad guys. Yeah. And it was a solid choice the way they did it. But why does a judge think that it has power to overrule the executive?
No, it's crazy, because again, the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is part of the Alien and Sedition Acts, a package of legislation that has undergone more constitutional scrutiny than any other package of legislation in American history. Every high schooler is taught it. Every college student is taught it. It is taught in every law school in the country, the Alien Seditions Act, because the sedition part of it is saying you can't talk ill of the government. That was thrown out, right? That was tossed out. That was not renewed, right? So you cannot learn American history without learning this. And the idea that we went 227 years, and this judge is now waking up and saying, oh, well, this must be unconstitutional, is insane. There is no legitimate reason for him to be able to do this. And Josh, he's calling the government in right now. They should be before him right now. He called an emergency hearing at 4 Eastern. So that was 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And what he's asking them to do, let me remove this. What he's asking them to do, he's asking them 4 questions. He's asking the federal government 4 questions. Whether any flight with individuals subject to the proclamation took off after the court's written or oral orders were issued. Whether any flight with the individuals subject to the proclamation landed after. Whether any flight was still in the air after, or whether the custody of any individual subject to the proclamation was transferred to a foreign country after. Well, we just read the order. Yeah. Apparently, this is the written order. He gave a verbal order in court saying, turn those planes around. Well, the written order gets sent. The White House reads the written order and says, oh, well, we're good. we're not allowed to remove people from the country, but they're already removed. So too late. Sorry. Catch you next time. He's going after them now because they didn't obey the verbal command, which may not be grounded in law, right? For a federal judge in the district of, I believe this is District of Columbia, to order that a plane in international airspace turn around, carrying terrorists, designated terrorists, out of the country, order removed by the president out of the country, it is just not a power that is normally given to judges. Now, maybe the Supreme Court comes back and say the president overstepped. That's fine. But the idea of a judge, a district court, lowest federal court level, to order a plane in international waters to turn around, not even in writing, just orally. It's not a power typically granted to judges. And the way our Constitution works is judges typically do not have the power to stop the executive from exercising an executive function. And this law states that the president can do this.
I mean, the Supreme Court is the only co-equal branch to the executive to make these decisions. So any judge anywhere can just start going after Donald Trump on everything he does then. It doesn't matter whether it's immigration, dealing with terrorists, the way money and federal money is spent. I mean, the first 100 days he's gotten so much done. Imagine what it'd be like if we didn't have all these crazy activist judges throwing these things out there. It doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you want terrorists thrown out of your court? It's done only in a spiteful way. I mean, the indignation here is just wild. And the thirst for power from a lower judge to. I mean, that's even a bigger slap in the face there. Like a nobody telling the president of the United States what to do. Yeah. It's Nancy Pelosi's wet dream come true.
Yeah. And listen, these laws are in place to allow the president of the United States to take swift and decisive action in moments of national security necessity, right? Yeah. That is the purpose for this law. So the idea that a single federal judge can gum up the works like this, you have to wonder what, like, are we going to, like, Trump ordered, you mentioned pirates. Trump ordered the United States military to attack the Houthis in Yemen. They are just modern day pirates. They're enacting tolls in the Red Sea, in that little strait. They're stopping, they're firing. I think they fired on American ships 174 times in the last year and a half. Mm-hmm. Now the Constitution, the law is clear. The president can go after pirates. But what if this judge just declares going after pirates is illegal? Like, turn those ships around in international water. It's a crazy thought. It's a crazy thought. And I can understand. Take out the illegal alien part. Take out the terrorist part, right? I can understand the ACLU's argument. I can understand where they're trying to get at. That these people were not given a trial before a jury of their peers. They were not convicted of a crime, and yet they were just put on a plane and shipped out of the country to a safe third country to stay in their jails instead. I can understand the legal argument the ACLU is trying to argue that this is not what due process is supposed to look like. And I outside of this situation, I probably would agree with them, right? But unfortunately, for them at least, Democrats and Republicans have written and passed many laws that give the president and the executive branch tremendous power to deal with terrorists in ways that go outside of the typical judicial system, right? I don't remember Democrats, and I remember the ACLU, but I don't remember Democrats crying when a drone dropped a Hellfire missile on Anwar al-Awlaki and his American citizen son overseas without a trial before a jury of their peers. I don't remember the Democrats crying about that. Oh, it's because that was Obama. Obama ordered that drone strike against American citizens, right? So they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want it both ways. We can't have it both ways.
I'm just shocked at the anti-Trump disease that's going on in judges' heads, right? I mean, they're pushing. This feels more serious. Like they're trying to see what they can get away with as often as they can now, and it's just an attempt to slow down Trump. But I don't know, man. The more they keep pushing this, the more the Supreme Court has to start deciding on things too, like where
Yeah.
that power ultimately lies. And I don't think I want that to sit with a federal judge who can change their mind on a whim all the time. I think also the responsibility of the executive is protecting the United States, making sure that we respond when things go horribly, horribly wrong. So
I'm just
I
going to
don't
play
get
this
it,
without
man.
audio while we keep talking, because this is the video of these gang members, illegal alien gang members, part of
Yeah,
designated terrorist organizations, being basically loaded off the plane in El Salvador, loaded into what looks like some kind of MRAP armored personnel
yeah.
carrier, dragged in and loaded off to taking pictures of their gang tattoos, right? Um, Loaded off
Well,
and brought off to detention.
yeah. Well,
Now these people
how do you
all
prove
still
these?
exist.
How do you prove these people are in a gang? Well, usually they have tons of tattoos and they mark themselves up, and I mean, they use their own language. They own sign language. You don't think all those gang symbols they make with their hands isn't a form of sign language? They're indicators. There's lots of things telling you these are bad guys. I don't see how
Yeah,
part of his order you couldn't say that these are members of those terrorist organizations. Now we can't call them cartels because they're terrorist organizations. Also, what happened with the
yeah,
Patriot Act? You know
yeah.
what what
Well,
what
yeah.
happened when we were allowed to start
That's
going
the whole
after?
thing. When if this judge is like, prove to us you're in he's in a terrorist organization. Your Honor, that's classified, right? That's
Yeah,
classified. So Trump wanted to send these people to Guantanamo Bay. Judges intervened and said, no, you can't do that. Well, why can't you do that? Because Guantanamo Bay is U.S. soil. Yeah, obviously it was where a lot of messed up stuff was done to suspected terrorists or caught terrorists. But they took that off the table, right? They took that off the table. So
yeah.
what is the Trump administration supposed to do? These people should have been in Guantanamo Bay. Instead, now they're being incarcerated at U.S. tax dollar expense in El Salvador, in jail specifically made. Oh, look, they're shaving this guy's
I mean,
beard.
they shave them. They have them in
Yeah,
hand and
you
leg
can't let them bring
chains.
lice in. Can't have
You
lice.
know, yeah, and a lot of these guys they don't live the cleanliest of lifestyles, and what I mean is like who they do and what they do. So yeah, you can't have that stuff in there.
And
But
listen, to an extent, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But you're not seeing a lot of people crying here, proclaiming, I'm innocent. This has all been a mistake. Now, these guys know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what's going on. And many of them have warrants against them in El Salvador.
so where was this? Who deals with that? It's not the State Department that goes after people with records. That would be like the FBI's job to make sure that illegals with criminals backgrounds or at least active warrants would be sent back. Like, I mean, I thought there was a group that deals with that, right? So if there, since that
Well,
exists, why
in a
did Joe
time,
Biden allow it to happen?
it's weird because the United States military cannot operate on U.S. soil unless there's an active like time of war, declaration of war,
Yeah,
and the whatnot.
right.
So,
Yes.
what do you do when you have foreign enemies on U.S. soil and the military isn't allowed to intervene? Well, do you put them through the justice system? There
That's
are
a
examples where we
50-50.
have. There are examples where we've caught in the Soviet Union, we've caught Russian spies and we put them through our justice
Yeah.
system where it absolutely makes sense to do that. The law doesn't require it if you declare them an alien enemy. They can be removed from the country. I mean, that is the option that is before the government anytime they capture an illegal alien criminal. They have really two doors they can march that criminal through. Do they
Well,
want that criminal to be incarcerated or do they want that criminal to be removed from the country? Right? There are most of these illegal alien criminals. We don't have to remove them. We could incarcerate them here, but why would we want to do that? Why would you want to bring a terrorist, a designated terrorist, into an American jail to radicalize others, to
yeah,
radicalize people who have shorter sentences so they can
yeah.
get out and wreak havoc themselves, right? Keep their networks going from in prison, which we all know happens, right?
Oh, all the time.
No, you have the option to remove them from the country. And what this judge is trying to say is they have to be convicted first. Well, no, there's those two doors. They can be removed or they can be indicted, right?
Yeah.
Demanding an indictment before a removal is to demand that the government walk through a different door, which is not that judge's authority. The judge doesn't have the power to say you should have done this instead of that. Those are two options available to the government. I want to read through the Alien Enemies Act real quick
Yeah.
of 1798, just to make sure we're not missing anything. And remember, this is 1798. The men who signed the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution helped draft and ratify this piece of legislation. If you venerate and you have respect for the Constitution, it is weird to not, at the very least, give deference to the same people who wrote this law and saw it necessary for the president to have this power in the earliest days of the United States. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled, that whenever there shall be a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion shall be perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government, and the President of the United States shall make public proclamation of the event, all native citizens, denizens, or subject of the hostile nation or government, being males of the age of 14 years and upwards, who shall be within the United States and not actually naturalized, shall be liable to be apprehended, restrained, secured, removed as enemies, as alien enemies. The President of the United States shall be and is hereby authorized in any event as aforesaid by his proclamation thereof or any or other public act to direct the conduct to be observed on the part of the United States towards the aliens who shall become liable as aforesaid, the manner and degree of the restraint to which they shall be subject, and in what cases and upon what security their residence shall be permitted, and to provide for the removal of those who are not being permitted to reside within the United States shall refuse or neglect to depart therefrom, and to establish any other regulations which shall be found necessary in the premises and for the public safety. So it keeps going.
Yeah.
So what the President of the United States, what the Trump administration is arguing, is they're saying that they have proof that the Maduro regime, at the very least, was okay with these Venezuelan gangs coming to the United States, and at most helped them come here, sent them here. These people have been terrorizing our streets. They've been declared a terrorist organization. So the question is, does this qualify? And what that judge is saying is, show me the evidence that these people, that these terrorists are an invasion, are part of an invasion or predatory incursion that is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government. So basically saying, prove it.
Yeah. With the way this judge is acting, every judge down the line would have access to classified information if they are given the evidence they seek. Now, are judges supposed to be privy to national secrets? Are judges meant to be privy to...
They can be read in, but not in open court.
Sure. But now we're talking about no open court. What's to actually prevent a judge from just ruling in other matters that would strengthen, or at least not strengthen, the word I'm looking for is expose those secrets to the people, like the risk. You know what I mean? I mean, we're talking about activist judges here. Yeah. They have no problem telling people how the juice or the sausage is made when it comes to state secrets.
Yeah. Now the DC Circuit, the DC District Court and the DC Circuit Court of Appeals, they handle a lot of government stuff. So those judges, I would imagine, all have security clearances just on the basis of what they've had to encounter. And even just to protect the accidental encountering of classified information. I would presume that many of them have already been cleared for this, and if not, that there's a process to clear them. The real struggle is that if you read this law, it does not require that the president go before a judge, present evidence of this before a judge, and obtain a judge's approval.
Well, the president shouldn't have to. He's like walking up to him with his hat, begging for him to be able to do his job at that point. The president would be considered, I mean, he'd be rendered kind of powerless if every time he has to do something, he has to go before a judge. What's that going to include? I mean, even this in here says that if they're attacked, he gets to at least act.
Yeah.
I mean, does he have to go to a judge now every time he's calling the army to defend the borders? I mean, where does his power stop?
That's kind of what this judge is demanding. Oversight on this 1798 enumerated legal power that for the president of the United States to declare an invasion, someone else should have the power to decide go or no go. right?
Wow.
If the president of the United States says we're being invaded, this judge fancies himself to be the one who should decide whether or not the invasion is real.
Wow. That would
Right.
cause
And
a huge constitutional crisis
yeah,
all around.
and I can understand the other side of it. Like the Trump administration's argument is definitely stretching the legal language, right? Because this was not an invasion of ground troops, right? There aren't tanks coming across the border. There's not an open declaration of war. But if you notice, there's two different parts of this, right? It's that whenever there shall be a declared war between the United States and any other nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion shall be perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States. So you don't need a declared war. You don't even need technically an invasion. You can say this was a predatory incursion. And where does a federal judge get off saying that the millions of illegal aliens who came across the border in the last year, that the criminal elements among them did not constitute a predatory incursion, right?
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
so common sense. You're like, why are we even having this hearing?
So now I understand why Biden was calling everybody coming across the border an illegal immigrant. Because now you try to create dubious language that surrounds the
He's
people
calling
that
them
enter this
migrants,
country.
calling them all
Yeah.
migrants.
Right. Call them
Yeah.
all migrants. Instead, how can a migrant cause an invasion, Max? Right. I
Yeah.
mean, let's
Oh,
start talking about the argument that they're going to start
yeah.
throwing at. Right. They were just victims. They had to come over here. There was nothing predatory about their actions. I mean, that's what these cases are going to sound like once they're argued. And now we understand the long-term play by Democrats on this. I mean, they planned an invasion that they'd be able to hide behind illegal immigration, like immigrants.
Well, the
That's
question is, did
unreal.
they plan that, or did they plan all these people coming across the border and they're okay with the bad elements? They say, oh, we have to take the good with the bad,
But
right? Because that's
why?
what they
I
always
mean,
say.
it's insanity, though. You would only want the people that genuinely wanted to be part of something better, not folks who are coming here and dealing in sex trafficking and raping little girls. I mean, that sounds predatory to me, right? When they started establishing drug running,
Yeah.
when they started establishing sex trade, I mean, that's the predatory nature of this. Like the
So
arguments are going to be made.
yeah, the word predatory incursion. I was just looking it up briefly just to see if there is any other, because this is a law that's only been used a couple times in our history. Whether there's any legal precedent to define what a predatory incursion is. And it is defined, the times that it has been defined, it's been used to describe when Native American tribes would have war raids against American settlements. And
Wow.
that was them crossing the border and killing people. So that's what these gang members did. Right?
To a T. I mean, it's like the definition of what they came in and
yeah.
did.
Now they didn't run back to their teepees afterwards,
No, they
but
stayed
they
right
crossed the
there.
border with the intent of committing lawless acts. Rape,
Like what, taking
murder,
over an apartment
assault.
complex?
Yes. Threatening people at gunpoint. If that video of, just imagine, let's imagine this little hypothetical. That video that came out from Aurora, Colorado. Imagine it was actually 200 years in the past. And it was someone on the prairie in their log cabin. And all of a sudden, a band of Native Americans with bows and arrows and tomahawks comes up to their door and demands that they pay up or that they're going to kill them. That kind of stuff happened. Now, many
Absolutely
times the Native Americans just wanted to kill them. But imagine if it was just a shakedown. Pay up, protection money. That would be described as a predatory incursion. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, and it's anything that rises to the level of that would be included. Imagine when murderers are thrown in the crimes that are committed just for pleasure's sake. What about all of the like drugs now could be considered something predatory because they're harming people directly with all that fentanyl.
Yeah.
So the arguments that they've been coming here and doing things that are our predatory nature is probably well established. So if you're the judge that put an injunction on this, why the hell are you thinking that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
what's
reading
what?
it though. This is interesting. It seems like the president of the United States needs to make a public proclamation that all natives, denizens, are subjects of the hostile nation or government. I mean, that's another question. Does this now apply to all Venezuelans?
The answer, wow, that's a very
Right?
broad power.
It's a very broad
Denizens,
power. So it is an extremely broad power that again is a break glass in case of emergency. They're
yeah.
here, they're hurting our people. We have to get them out. This isn't okay, charge them, put them in a cell block. Right? This is they are raping and murdering on the prairie. We
Mhm.
need the Rangers to go and take them out and remove them from the country.
Yeah.
Right? This is not, oh, let's indict them and put them before a jury of their peers.
Yeah.
These are
Well,
distinct powers. Like we like to think that we live in a civilized time and that we don't need these powers anymore. But these powers still exist for a very good reason.
yeah.
When you have a designated terrorist group operating on U.S. soil and you have the government saying they have evidence to believe that the Maduro regime, at the very least, turned a blind eye to them coming here, at worst, sent them here,
Yeah.
knowing what they would do. Well, what do you do in that point?
I mean,
Do
that's
you like don't forget this, you have local police and local mayors saying no matter what, we will not help you remove them.
yeah.
Colorado isn't helping remove these people.
No, not at all. There was video where they had released a guy from police custody, and ICE had to chase him down again at the police station. Right? That's the kind of non-help they're getting. I mean, you'll be able to tell the ones who are causing the problems because they cause so much evil. You can recognize the ones that you need to go after, which is what Homan and Trump have done. Right? They've been going after the worst of the worst, the bad of the bad. It needs to
Yeah.
be done. It has to be done. There's a reason why it was created. And now people sit on this false moral high horse saying that nobody should be deported because of the protections afforded to them by the Constitution. And they're not citizens of the United States. How does the Constitution protect them? That was something I always grappled with. I know there's provisions in there that
They
protect
do
them.
have constitutional protections. The constitutional protections, I go through this again in my book, The Conservative's Guide to Winning Every Immigration Argument. The constitutional protections that illegal aliens enjoy really are dependent on how long they've been in the United States, right? Because these constitutional protections often describe them as a right of the people, right? So if an illegal alien hops over the border and they've been here 1 minute, right? You're right. They do not have the same due process rights as an illegal alien who has been here for 20 years, has kids in the school system, volunteers at the PTA, right? Has a business, right? You can make the argument that though here illegally, they have done enough to be part of the people, the community. They're not supposed to, but they've done it nonetheless. So they have many more constitutional protections than someone who literally just climbed over the border wall and they caught him as his feet touched U.S. soil.
Sure. What happens if they climb that border wall? They've been here for 10 years, but that entire 10 years they've been running an international drug operation.
Yeah.
Or they've been
Yeah.
part of an
Yeah.
international drug. So what do we
Yeah.
call that then? How's that not predatory? How's that not harm?
They fall into the same legal no man's land as the American citizen caught up in NSA surveillance, right? This is
Holy
the same
shit,
legal no
really?
man's land of when do our when does our right to privacy end? The right to privacy ends when you start engaging in terrorism against the United States. You know what I mean? Like these are the same kinds of arguments. And it's definitely a very libertarian kind of argument that, oh, these people should not be removed. They need due process. And I'm very sympathetic to those arguments because conservatives have been at the receiving end of constitutional violations very similar to this. But the underlying problem of all this is that they're in the country illegally. They have no right to be here, right? These are
Yeah.
people who have already been arrested or charged or suspected of committing very serious crimes. Very serious crimes. So it is not the same as someone who's online looking up, how is it really that easy to make a pipe bomb, and they get caught up in the dragnet,
Yeah.
right? It's not the same, because at the heart of all of this, they do not have the right to be here. They do not
Yeah.
have the right to be here. Donald Trump could remove them from the country under a wide range of constitutional powers, right? He used this one because it's quick and easy. The president of the
Yeah.
United States
Yeah.
has the authority to just declare any class of aliens to be personas non grata, and to say you can't come
Wow.
in. Any class. Now he can do that for an entire nation. He could do that for all illegal aliens combined. He could also just say any illegal alien with a connection to Tren de Aragua is not allowed into the United States.
Wow.
And that power would give him the authority to remove these people. No matter what he does, it's going to get challenged, right? This is the fastest
Yeah.
one. And this was Stephen Miller's brainchild. We showed that video of it. He's the one who was kind of calling the shots, making these deals. It's a crazy story that we're just sending them to El Salvador.
I mean, if you got to send them somewhere and you can't do Guantanamo Bay, you send them to El Salvador. You don't go there for a vacation. It's not like they come out with a college education and they've been getting conjugals with the wife every 3 days or every 3 months or whatever it is, right? This is a hardcore prison where they are chained to walls, left in their prisons. Like the chains come off once they're in cells, but there's nothing easy about being in a El Salvadorian prison.
Oh no. And the lights never go off.
Oh dear God, you're kidding.
Yeah.
That would be horrible. Like that's the worst thing I've heard.
I suspect that you're going to see the ACLU file motions that even if it is legal for Trump to do this, he put them in a prison that is a violation of their human rights. Right? I expect that to come.
Wow.
That's the even if argument, saying in the United States, you're not allowed to keep the lights on all day. Gotta let them sleep. They don't do that in El Salvador. They have to be brought back. And then you get into a really weird argument of like, no, I don't want to bring them back.
Yeah.
You can't force me to go bring people back illegally into the country.
Because then the president would be violating the law at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's something that Biden did. Biden reached out to illegal aliens who were deported under Trump, and he invited them back in.
Sinister. Now I understand whether they saw what they were doing or not. It's a really interesting play on the nomenclature, at least the way they're defining what those people were all those years they were coming in. And the longer they were let in and the longer nothing was allowed to go on, the easier the argument made to keep them. Right. So now you've got these judges out here who've been appointed by Biden, making these calls, making these shots. And we get to pay for it all, right? I mean, there's taxpayer dollars that are going to start going out to make sure that this thing gets decided in a court. The Supreme Court's got some serious things on its docket coming up, like some real history-making decisions here.
And it shouldn't be history-making decisions, because what ends up happening in all of these cases is they take stuff that was settled law, like understood that the president can do that. And because it's Trump, they say it's different. Because it's Trump, they say it's different. They had no problem the other times the Alien Enemies Act had been used and enacted, right? When the Alien Sedition Acts were heavily scrutinized, this was one of the only bits and pieces that was allowed to survive, right? It's been allowed to stay on the books for 227 odd years, right? Yeah, 227 years. Almost as old as the country itself. Like, this is one of our first immigration laws.
Yeah.
One of our oldest immigration laws. If you throw that out, then you basically say any immigration law can be thrown out, which is crazy.
And then every enemy of the United States will just come here. They'll never have to fight a war. All they have to do is get an address in like a motor voter scheme. Makes you think about the whole motor voter. Right? I mean, and they were setting that up during Clinton. Was the idea here to destabilize the United States to the point where you could hold a January 6th event to try to pin it all on one of your political opponents, jail him, and then allow an army to walk in, essentially? You wouldn't even need an army. You would just need chaos, right? You would need drugs chaos and bad people willing to do bad things. That feels like a sinister plan, something that would have like super genius level Lex Luthor kind of vibes
Yeah.
to it, right? And I hope that's not the case, but they sure are acting like an entity that was trying to destabilize the United States.
We have a new development. The Trump administration has now asked that the DC Circuit Court of Appeals, has just happened just minutes ago, has asked that the DC Circuit Court of Appeals intervene to reassign this case to another judge, which is
Wow.
interesting. It's very interesting. Um,
So they want to get rid of the guy, or at least go to a different judge.
I'll read it. Let's read
Okay.
it. Pursuant to Rule 28J, the government provides urgent notice of developments below. Yesterday, the government provided notice regarding its compliance with the district court's temporary restraining orders attached. Overnight, plaintiffs responded attached and asked the district court to compel the government to address operational details regarding flights that removed aliens identified as associated with a designated foreign terrorist organization. The district court has now set an open public hearing for 5 p.m. Eastern in order that the government be prepared to provide answers to the questions raised by the plaintiffs. All the questions at issue relate to past actions, not prospective compliance with the court's orders. The development escalates the stakes of the district court's inappropriate exercise of jurisdiction and the risks that the district court may force the government to disclose sensitive national security and operational security concerns or face significant penalties from the court. The government cannot and will not be forced to answer sensitive questions of national security and foreign relations in a rushed posture without orderly briefing, and is showing that these questions are somehow material to a live issue. Answering them, especially on the proposed timetable, is flagrantly improper and presents grave risks to the conduct of the government in the areas wholly unsuited to micromanagement supervision by a district court judge.
Wow.
The district court's hasty public inquiry into these sensitive national security matters with no contemplated protections against the disclosure of operational details underscores the urgency of immediate relief from this court, including an immediate administrative stay that would allow further briefing to unfold in an orderly and appropriate manner that prevents the district court from further efforts to interfere with President Trump's core Article 2 authorities, including the conduct of foreign policy. This court should also immediately reassign this case to another district court judge, given the highly unusual and improper procedures. Example, certification of a class action involving members of a designated foreign terrorist organization in less than 18 hours with no discovery and no briefing from the government that have been employed in the district court's proceedings to date. That's wild. That's wild.
Crap.
I mean, they just made the smackdown. That's what you were asking about. What happens if this leaks out? They have the same concerns that you do, Josh. Why will we present on a rush timetable, giving us 12 hours to present classified details? Like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
And do you know how hard it is to get a class action lawsuit actually certified in this country? It is really freaking hard. Like law firms that focus on class action lawsuits have to jump through hoops. They have to actually have clients, right? They have to prove how they solicited the clients. There's all regulations around it. And then the class has to be certified. The idea that a foreign terrorist organization jumped the line and got a class action certification in less than 18 hours with no discovery and no government briefing. I mean, this is what the left loves to do. They love to find these sympathetic judges, get ex parte rulings without the government able to argue on their behalf, right? And to shut down Trump. So many of these orders are coming ex parte, coming without the government being able to brief the court. So the court can just do whatever they want. It's crazy. But this literally just dropped.
A class action lawsuit on behalf of a terrorist organization.
Thanks, ACLU.
That's what we're getting out of the ACLU now? You know, Max, the polls today indicated that the Dems are suffering. Like they are
worst approval ever.
Low.
Ever.
And we're talking about how the ACLU is representing in a class action lawsuit in less than 18 hours a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
And
I saw one poll that had only 7% of registered voters view the Democrat Party very favorably.
No. 7.
7.
And that's like the core constituent. They can do no wrong. I love you so much.
Because they pissed off their base. They pissed off their base because they let Trump fund the government at the same levels that Biden funded it. Right? That was their line in the sand. Like, don't you dare repass the Biden budget. I'm pissed. They should have had a new budget. They knew Trump won. They should have been working overtime to have a new budget that has Republican conservative ideals. You know why they didn't have a new budget waiting, Josh?
Why?
Because the last head of the appropriations subcommittee was in a mental home, an old person home. That was the woman that they were hiding in the Alzheimer's ward. Remember the congresswoman?
Oh my God. Yeah. The lady
she headed up. I don't know if it was the subcommittee or the committee, the appropriations.
Oh my God.
So all those times that they're like, okay, yeah, we'll just redo what we did last time. It's because she's in an old age home. She's out of Congress now, so there's someone else, right? But that is why they kept passing last year continuing resolution, because you actually need people to do the work. You have to build the spending packages, right? They're thousands of pages for a reason. Yeah.
Max, this is all. We're watching one of the biggest implosions of an American political party. The Democrats have been a powerhouse for decades.
I'm seeing something across social media. I don't think it's been done yet, but it's a recommendation, something that's being floated. Canceling the judge's security clearance on suspicion of being sympathetic to designated terrorists. Anyone who jumps through hoops to give designated terrorists a class action status.
Yeah.
If they open an investigation into him, they can suspend his security clearance.
How can you
during the investigation?
A lawsuit without
that's crazy.
discovery?
You don't want to do that. Yeah.
There's no discovery. There's nothing that says this is why I am suing on their behalf. He's said it's okay.
No. So what happens when, like, if you were to say oh, we want to have a class action lawsuit against a tobacco company, right? And these are all of our people. The tobacco company gets to sit down and then basically depose all those people to see whether they actually belong in the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, you have lung cancer, but you also worked in a coal mine. Did you ever think that maybe that did it? And then they challenge it, saying you can't prove that this person got lung cancer from this. It's a shitty thing to do, but that's
what they do.
That's the process, right? You challenge each member of the class to try and whittle it down, especially if you have a sympathetic leader of the class, whoever is the named person in the lawsuit. The Trump administration was not allowed to do that.
Unbelievable.
That's
unbelievable.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's lawless. I mean, the judge has to know that what they're doing has the appearance of bias at this point. Hey, I mean, he should be recusing himself, and maybe putting it into another judge is the answer here. But in a public hearing,
we have more news. JFK files are being released tomorrow. I say that with a grain of salt.
Salt, yeah.
Because last time we got news like this, it was a waste. But Trump's on C-SPAN. He was just on C-SPAN. He visited the Kennedy Center and announced that they'll be released tomorrow. So we'll see. I'm sure there's going to be redactions. But we will see.
There has to be. I'm guessing the CIA was a little too heavily involved for everyone's taste.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the things I've heard is that the redactions come afterward. So there are people in the CIA who were questioned afterwards and might have revealed certain things afterwards that might not have had anything to do with the actual assassination, because the JFK files include everything, including the post investigations, right? So what they've said is that people got caught up in it and really don't have anything to do with it, but they'll be released anyway. So I'm sympathetic to that, but at this point, you just got to release everything. You just got to release everything. Any last words before we wrap up?
Oh, it's time. There's a new sheriff in town, and it's long overdue. Getting a lot of these people that don't belong here out. There's terrorists living amongst us right now, and Democrats want to keep terrorists in the country. Democrats want this lawlessness. I mean, it's not even a joke. I mean, it's real. It's not a joke. It's just the reality of it. The ACLU. I don't
They
know
came out in the first 2 months of the Trump presidency. They decided that their hill to die on is going to be stopping Biden's funding levels from being reinstated, to protect the foreign aid, to stop Doge from gutting and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. And now to protect the terrorists and illegal alien criminals from being removed from the country. It is not a coincidence that the Democrats have I believe the lowest like hardcore approval rating, like very, very favorable approval rating that's ever been recorded.
I'm guess I'm happy for that one. I'm happy for that one. You're reading like something else breaking. You've got that look.
No,
I thought you were seeing something else.
I just heard that the music was playing very, very softly behind us.
Yeah, it's called setting the mood on the way out.
Okay. Well, that's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like the podcast, subscribe, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, share, follow us. We're on Rumble, we're on YouTube, we're on X. So please make sure you do that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We also have the audio edition of the podcast available everywhere audio podcasts are found. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I'm Josh Ammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together. See you next time.
See ya.